When COVID-19 broke out, Australia closed the border to temporary visitors. The border restrictions have lasted for a year and a half. The latest news is that the border restrictions are expected to be lifted next month. If the border restrictions are lifted, what will Australia look like? What do you need to know about coming to Australia to study and live? What will happen when Australia's borders open? Australia's borders are slowly opening. In some states, we've hit 70%, over 70% vaccination rate. So the country is, from November, will start to open up for Australian citizens to leave the country. And eventually, once we hit 80%, the opening up will become more increased with temporary visa applicants being able to come in. This may start from student visas, business visas, and eventually tourist visas. And this should happen sometime between January and June next year over a slow opening up process. At first, it will be targeted at fully vaccinated people, so people that have been vaccinated with either the AstraZeneca, the Pfizer, Moderna, Sinovac and COVID Shield, and there will be home quarantine and hotel quarantine options available. Do you need to wear a mask? Wearing a mask at the moment is compulsory indoors in settings with large numbers of people. In outdoor settings and places with minimal people, it is still recommended that you wear a mask to keep yourself safe and keep others safe from COVID as well. Do you still need to scan the QR code for registration? Currently, it is a requirement of entry to all places of business that you scan the state government QR code. So regardless of which state you are in, there will be a QR code at the entry of all businesses that you will need to use your phone to scan. If you do not have a phone or it's not connected to the internet, then there is usually a paper application at the door where you can sign in with your name and contact number on entry. Do I need to be vaccinated? At the moment, the Australian government has a target of at least 70% of the eligible population to be vaccinated. If we reach 70, then opening up process will begin. If we can reach 80%, then the borders will slowly open for international visitors to come in, whether they be students, tourists or workers. So the borders will slowly open up. So the government has a target to reach to, as soon as possible, get the majority of the population that is eligible to be vaccinated. If I want to study, what should I do first? So if you are an international student or you are contemplating coming to Australia to study, or we recommend starting the process now because it is new to a lot of people in terms of working in a post-COVID world. School applications may take a little bit longer. Student visa applications, as soon as the border opens up, are going to be, the immigration department is going to be inundated with student visa applications. So this could blow out processing times. So my advice to anyone looking to study in Australia is to first look at what you want to study, have a look at the course options, what type of career you want to have in the future, whether that be in Australia or in your home country or in another country. Look at the employment opportunities and careers and what you enjoy doing, what you think is going to be employment in need or jobs in need in the future. So look at these things to decide on what course you want to study. Once you've decided on a course or maybe a couple of different options, you can then look at in Australia which universities have a good or which universities or colleges or TAFE have a good reputation for that course. I would say that not all universities, just because they're in the top 8 or they have a ranking for the overall university, sometimes universities have strong reputations in certain courses. So I would look at that as well. And we can advise on all of these options for you. Once you've have a couple of options in terms of which university you want to study. You can also look at the state, which state or territory in South Australia that you would like to study. You can look at things like the type of weather, living costs. All of these are important factors when choosing your course and your provider. Once you have chosen a specific course, you can make the application to the school with all your documents ready. And then once you get a letter of offer from the school, you can then make payment. Once you've made payment, you get the confirmation of enrolment. And with that, you can then go and apply for the student visa. Student visas at the moment are still being processed and still being approved. I would recommend anyone that's ready to apply apply, whether you are waiting to come over next year or whether you're happy to start your online course first with the school. A lot of schools are offering online courses at the moment, and if you're willing to start your course online, then you can apply for your student visa while you're starting your course, and once the borders open, then you'll be able to book your flights and come back in if you meet all the entry requirements. How do I apply for a visa? So when it comes to applying for a student visa, in a lot of cases, people will choose to find an agency, a migration or visa or student agency such as ourselves, and you can come to us. You can do a student visa by yourself, but in terms of risk ratings for different countries, and especially at the moment because of COVID, because of a lot of changes in processing, I would recommend finding an expert in the field that deals with a lot of student visas. Student visas, although it can be a simple process, they do have a couple of tricky situations above and beyond COVID restrictions. Things such as the genuine temporary entrant criteria, which is a GTE. The GTE is a criteria that requires the applicant to explain how the proposed course is going to benefit their future in their home country. So the immigration wants to know a couple of things. One, that you're not looking to do this course just to migrate to Australia, but also the investment that you make for studying in Australia, because it's not cheap. It requires a substantial investment, so that the investment you make for your study and you're living overseas for the number of years you're coming, whether it be 2, 3, 4 years, and the career outcome that you'll get from that match. So if you were spending, upwards of 100 or 200,000 Australian dollars, and you want to go home and get a job that may only bring you 10,000 Australian dollars income, then the investment would be deemed as a bad investment, and the immigration department may believe that you're not a genuine temporary entrant. Likewise, if you are studying a course and your evidence points to you wanting to migrate to Australia, the immigration department may not approve your visa. So the student visa process, once you've applied for the school, you've got your confirmation of enrolment, you'll need to show your passport. Once you have your confirmation of enrolment, you can then apply for the student visa. You'll need to have your passport, your previous transcript, your curriculum vitae or your resume, and any evidence that suggests that you have more incentive to go home after you come to Australia, whether it be a job offer, whether it be assets, whether it be a career plan that you have researched in your home country. So all of these things will point to a genuine temporary entrant and are required for a student visa application. How long in advance should I buy plane tickets? So once you've applied for your student visa and the visa is being granted, you will wait, obviously now being COVID restrictions, you'll wait for notification that the borders are open. That may be from your school, it may be from a registered migration agent that you've used, such as ourselves. I would recommend, regardless whether you went through a migration agent for your application or you went directly with the school and did your visa yourself, that you contact your registered migration agent or the school before purchasing your flights, because in these times of COVID, even when we open up, it will be bit by bit. So it will not be a case of we open up tomorrow and all international students can come back. So it'll be done on a priority basis first, most likely for students that were originally studying here before COVID and got trapped overseas due to holidays at the time of the border closures, and maybe also for students that are currently studying online. Those will be a higher priority. Then newer students will slowly be coming back. It could be also a school priority, for example, universities first and then colleges. At this point, we don't know yet. So I would recommend keeping in touch with your registered migration agent and or your school before you purchase a ticket. Now, once you have been given the go-ahead to purchase your ticket, I would definitely recommend coming back coming over to Australia at least 3 or 4 weeks before your course start date. That will give you time to do any quarantine that you need to do, then to organise things like transport tickets, get familiar with where your university is, where you'll be living, all those kind of things that are associated with moving or living in a different country. How can I find a place to live? Once you come to Australia, or once you have got your student visa and you have booked your flights, so you've been given the okay to book your flights and you're ready to come over, you may want to look at different accommodation types, so where you're going to live. A lot of schools and universities will have accommodation services, so in many cases they may charge, so they may be able to organise a homestay or a student accommodation for you. You're also welcome to go onto websites for share accommodation and rental properties. So you, as an international student, you can rent, whether it be a whole house, you can rent a room, so for shared accommodation. You can live in student accommodations. A lot of the universities have agreements with different shared accommodation providers. Homestay, there are a lot of families that for both under 18 and over 18-year-olds will look at hosting a student from overseas. So these are all good options and all options to consider. I would always recommend that you pick something that's right for you, whether it be a share house so that you have other people there to talk to, or whether it be a homestay so you have a family that can look after you, but bearing in mind that you'll be living under the family's house and you'll have the family's rules to abide by. So all these things to consider, and also looking at where your accommodation will be in comparison to where your university or your school is. These are important things to consider as well. What should I pay attention to when I arrive in Australia? Arriving in Australia, you'll notice, especially at the moment due to COVID restrictions, there'll be a lot of security at the airport directing you where to go in terms of going through migration, going through customs, forms you need to fill out in terms of if you've brought anything to Australia, including items like medicines, wood, different plants or things like that. We always recommend not to, especially on your first trip, not to bring too many items that may be banned in Australia. So things like your clothes and your laptop, iPad, phones, those things are all fine. Food items can be a hit and miss, so until you're familiar with Australia and maybe on your first holiday back to your home country and then returning to Australia, you may look at bringing what you can and can't bring, but probably for your first trip it's good to avoid bringing food items in. And once you get here and you've gone through immigration and customs, then you'll be able to travel to your accommodation if you're doing home quarantine, or you will be taken to a hotel if you are doing hotel quarantine. At this point, we're not sure on what the criteria will be in terms of when you first get here, but as soon as you get here and you've done your quarantine, whether it be hotel quarantine or home quarantine, then you will be free to travel around like any person that's been here for a long time. You can obviously catch a taxi. We have Uber, which is sort of a paper service, a private taxi if you like, bus and public transport. So there are many ways to get around. I would, in most cases, Australian capital cities like Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Perth, Hobart, Darwin, the central business district, the CBD or the city itself, is fairly central, and most people live out in the suburbs. So you can explore the city, take a day to explore where your school or university will be, where you go to buy transport tickets, where you go to buy groceries. You might want to look for a doctor in terms of having a doctor handy when you're sick. So all these kind of things, and opening a bank account. You want to look at which bank accounts are good. So all of these things are things to plan before you get here, whether you Google or whether you search on the web and look at the best places to visit when you're here. And the main thing is coming here to study, enjoy the experience. I know it can be daunting, but it is an experience of a lifetime, something that memories that you'll cherish when you get older, and it's the start of a new career. So enjoy.